What's up, guys? Eli here, back for a new stuff video. This one's going to be a little bit different than the way I usually do things. Today, we're only going to be talking about two albums that I picked up over the last few months, and what kind of unites these two. They're albums quite different from each other, but they are both cult classics. Now, I think you're smart enough to know what a cult classic is, but just in case you don't, in case you're like, what do you mean? So a cult classic is basically something that probably should have been bigger than it was, but gained momentum over the years to kind of a specific demographic. But regardless, just never broke into mainstream. So I got two different albums from two different bands that I consider, and a lot of people consider, cult classics. We're going to start off with A Crystal Vision by band Sacred Oath. Now this is a kind of a band out of the U.S., out of Danbury, Connecticut, formed back in 1985. This is their debut album from '87, and they play like a combination of like power metal, thrash metal, maybe even a little speed metal, traditional heavy metal. Back in the '80s, in just like pretty much all states and cities and suburban areas kind of had their own scene. Connecticut's obviously a very small state. It's not a state that you associate with heavy metal, but I mean back then they had, along with Sacred Oath, you had Fate's Warning, you had Liege Lord. Those were probably the three biggest bands to come out of the Connecticut area. I'm sure there's some others that I either am forgetting or just maybe I haven't heard, smaller bands. So being from the same area as Fate's Warning, as a matter of fact, on the inside, you'll see them in the thanks notes. They thank the guys from Fate's Warning and Liege Lord. So, growing up in the same area as Fate's Warning, I think I draw a lot of parallels to early Fate's Warning. You could compare this to the first Fate's Warning album in how it is a really good album. It's well written and it's well played, but just like the Fate's Warning debut, it is kind of, you sense like a youthful energy. That first Fate's Warning album is cool, but I think it's miles from being their best album. That said, considering it was put together by, at the time, probably teenagers, pretty fucking impressive. So I think this does sound a little bit like very early Fate's Warning with a little bit more of a thrash touch. Kind of like No Exit from Fate's Warning. The album came out in '89, although this came out 4 years before that. And similar like mystical vibe too. That early Fate's Warning stuff just has this kind of mystical magic sound, kind of almost occult sound to it. You get the vibes with the cover art as well, very occult looking. So yeah, cool mystical vibes like Fate's Warning. I'm also getting some touches of Merciful Fate. Early Merciful Fate, especially the final song on here, title track, A Crystal Vision. Clearly fans of Merciful Fate. I don't think there'd be any denying that. If you're a fan of stuff like Manowar, Jagdpanzer, Virgin Steel, Agent Steel, stuff like that, or even early Queensryche, I think you'd really dig Sacred Oath. I guess maybe one of the reasons why they never became bigger is that they didn't have a follow-up album until 2005, and I haven't heard any of their other stuff. So I mean, I don't know what happened. They probably settled down and got jobs, stuff like that people do, and I don't know. I don't know their history. They're definitely a band to me that when you listen to this, you're like, yeah, there's some potential here. I'd even say there's a little bit of like Ride the Lightning, Metallica, just a touch of that on there as well. Throw that into the blender of the other stuff that I named. It's a really, really, really cool album. I highly recommend this for fans of all the stuff I just talked about. Check out Sacred Oath. I think you'll really, really dig it. Now, the other band I'm talking about, I did a retrospective of kind of their whole history not too long ago. But in case you didn't see that, we got Aftermath with The Eyes of Tomorrow full length. This was their debut album from 1994. They also formed in '85, just like Sacred Oath. They don't sound anything like Sacred Oath. This is technical thrash metal. technical thrash metal with I'd say even little bits of death metal here and there. If you like Atheist, those first three Atheist albums, if you like the band Believer, dude, this is so for you. They formed in 1985, like I said, in Chicago, Illinois. They also didn't have a follow-up until 2019. So, I mean, it took them almost 10 years to put out their first full length, and then they vanished for, a long, long time. If you're into more adventurous thrash metal, if you like Atheist, like I said, I mean, Atheist and Believer, I think, are the two strongest comparisons that I can think of. It's far from being a thrash metal album. I mean, I call it technical thrash metal, but really, I mean, there's just as much just technical metal in there. It's almost more tech metal than thrash, but it is a band. I think I'm calling it technical thrash metal is because they started out like pretty much a pure thrash band, almost a crossover band. They had a bunch of demos that led up to this. But this is a different beast altogether. This barely sounds like those demos. There's probably people out there that are like, I like the demos better. That was more my cup of tea. I'm more into DRI and stuff like that. And I like some of that early crossover, but I like something about thrash metal when it evolves and becomes like a technical beast. I really love stuff like that. I'm not sure why. I either like my thrash metal raw and primitive or super techy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why, but I mean, just the songs are fairly long. It's a fairly long album. There's just tons of complex musicianship, but it's also got some atmospheric passages. It's not all just techie shreddy, but there is a lot of that. This is a technical metal album for sure. And just like Sacred Oath, this album should have made them bigger. This should have put them on the map. But if you look into their history, they just had such a tumultuous band history that it just didn't happen for them. They're back now. They're putting out albums. I haven't really checked them out too much. I've sampled a little bit, but it's just I don't know. This is what I like from them. If they came back playing stuff like Eyes of Tomorrow, I'd be ecstatic. But to me, from what I've sampled, it's just a little bit different, and it's maybe not quite my cup of tea. So, anyways, guys, that's it. Just two albums, two bands that, in my opinion, should have made it bigger. But there is definitely a fan base for both these bands and both these albums. They're cult classics. What more can I say? Anyways, talk to me about stuff. Have you heard Sacred Oath? Have you heard Aftermath? Have you heard them both? If not, do you plan on checking them out? I would. I highly, highly recommend both these. If you're a fan of any of the genres or bands or anything that I talked about, if it piques your interest at all, I think these albums are definitely worth checking out. You can get them pretty cheap. These are actually another thing that unites these albums is they're both put out by the band. These did not come out on labels or anything. Self-released. You can get them on Discogs. You can get them on. They're not hard to find. You can get them all over the internet. So let me know if you've heard them. Let me know if you plan on checking them out. Hope you're doing well, and we will talk soon. Fucking cheers.